Hello everyone and welcome back to another Wizard101 video. Today, we're going to be talking about a topic that is perhaps one of my most viewed to least good video ratio I have ever seen in my life, and that is how to drastically speed up questing in Wizard101. That's a working title. Probably just how to speed up questing in Wizard101. Now, this video for some reason has like 30,000+ views, and it is literally probably one of the worst videos I've ever made. There's no structure to it. It's like 8 minutes long of me just rambling about things, and while there are some helpful tips there are many things I just didn't comment on that would very much serve people in terms of speeding up questing. Now let me start off this video by saying something. This video is kind of an amalgamation of like 6 different videos I've made in the past. If you've been watching all of my videos since Console Edition released and you've watched all my guide videos, then most of these things you'll already know, and this is kind of like a nice bow wrapped on top of it. So if you're expecting like a bunch of new tips, you're probably not going to get that here. However, kind of like a handy dandy collage of all the tips I've made in my last videos put together into one video to tell you the best way to speed up questing in Wizard101. Now, I'm going to start off this video by probably the most important thing in terms of actually speeding up questing, and that is decks and deck building. Now, if you've watched my deck building video, you kind of already know most of this already. This video is going to tell you very specifically the best way to speed quest in the game, and that is to build a very small deck. You don't want the deck to be any bigger than 2 rows of cards right here. Basically, the reason for this is that the longer you spend discarding cards trying to get the right card and the card you want to use in battle is the longer that every battle is going to take. If you have like 4 rows of cards in your deck, it is going to make questing very unbearable in terms of speed. So what I heavily recommend doing, this isn't really beneficial early on, but as soon as you get to like arc 2, this is going to speed up things massively, and that is to have an attack deck and a boss deck. Your attack deck is a very small deck that has like 1 row of cards. Personally, what I like to do is have 1 blade, 1 sharpen for that blade, 3 enchants, and then 3 hits. This is going to be the deck that I use on basically all the street enemies. Anything that is not a boss, I will use this deck. For lower levels, you're going to want a 4-pip AoE instead of the Wallaroo AoE, obviously. And then once you hit level 48, throw a 7-pip AoE in there just in case. This is mainly just in case you like, you have to use it. But I find that usually I don't use the 7-pip AoE. I just stick with the 4-pip AoEs in battle. It'll make questing so much better, especially if you have good gear and you can just one-shot with the 4-pip AoE. It's going to make mob fights go much faster than if you were to single target something or spend a long time dueling something. Now, for the second part of this is a boss deck. Very specifically in this game, the best way to kill things as fast as possible is simply to feint things. This card right here, Feint, will be your best friend your entire time playing this game. The main kind of meta currently in this game is to feint as many times as possible. Now, if for some reason you don't know, any version of a card that is different than another version will be able to stack. So what that means is specifically once you get Potent Trap, you can use a Potent Trap feint and a regular feint. If you have like an item card feint, that one will stack. If you have a treasure card feint, that will stack on top of it. So if you can get an item such as the Jewel of the Feint at level 50 from the bazaar that gives an extra feint, you will be able to use regular feint, that feint. Once you get Potent Trap, you'll be able to use that feint. You can use treasure card feints, which is going to be another feint. Basically, the point is that the more feints you stack, the better and faster everything will go. I found that the main way to speed quest for me, I actually got the Dworgen's Havoc Hood from the Professor's Horde pack, which you don't need to. If you don't want to spend crowns, you don't need to, but the Dworgen's Havoc Hood is absolutely one of the best ways to do this because it gives mass feint, which you can use on every enemy, and that mass feint is going to be so good in terms of speeding it up because you can stack on bosses, you can stack a potent feint and a regular feint and the mass feint. You can also use this mass feint on street enemies as well, which is going to be super useful if you're questing with someone. Basically, the point is feints are your best friend. All right, next up, we're going to go over a tip that was in my tips and tricks video, but I'm sure not everyone knows, and that is you can get monstrous treasure cards at a very early level if you follow these steps. So first you come to the housing tour in the commons, you walk in here, you talk to Morello Windspa right here, click visit castle, top rated, you scroll down to top rated dorms, then you find the Arcanum apartment. This again should work on both console and PC. On console, sometimes the Arcanum apartment isn't showing up as much, but it should be there like 99.9% of the time. You enter the Arcanum apartment and then you leave through the door. This will put you right here in the Arcanum, which if you walk all the way to Librarian Fitzhume down here, he will be selling Monstrous TCs for 250 a piece. 250 gold is not that much if you're questing through the early game. Like by the time you're getting to croc, you'll be able to buy a massive amount of these. On my ice on console, I was able to buy like 50 of these by the time I got to croc. So post croc, and then like once you get to Marleybone or Mushu, whatever, you're gonna be able to buy a ton of these. Basically what these do is once you buy them, you can put them in your treasure card deck like this, and every time in a battle, you can choose to discard a card, draw this from your treasure card deck, and then use it to enchant a card, and that will make it do plus 175 damage. This is obviously going to be so useful in the early game. Like, just imagine the fact, right? I have Troll that does 185 to 215. With a plus 175, it's going to be doing almost double the amount of damage it would normally do, and that would mean that if I have even a decent set of gear, Troll would probably kill most enemies all the way up to Mushu. And this is going to be especially prevalent like once you get to Dragonspire. You can enchant your 4-pip AoE, you can enchant your 7-pip AoE. It's going to be so useful to be able to get that early on, and it will make questing in Arc 1 so much faster. Someone who has Monstrous TCs will probably be able to finish Arc 1 in maybe not half, but maybe like 2/3 of the time that someone without Monstrous TCs would be able to do, which just makes it obviously so much faster. So this is probably the second tip, and one of the most important. If you combine feint stacking with this tip, Arc 1 is going to probably take you like 10 hours or so. It might be a little bit longer, potentially could be less if you're really good at the game and really fast, but the point is it's going to speed it up massively. All right, the next tip is probably just a general tip that I think would help a lot of people, and that is to pick and choose what gear sets to farm. What I mean by this is that you don't need to farm for every gear set and every piece of every gear set in the game all the way through, obviously. If you're farming for the Zeus gear, you don't need to farm for Barkingham, and you probably don't even really need to farm for the Dragonspire World gear. If you're skipping the Zeus gear and just using Bazaar gear, once you reach level 50, you can buy the Dragonspire World gear if it is in the Bazaar, and then simply use that potentially all the way up to level 100, or you can skip that, go to Bygone. My point is you don't need every gear set. You can just pick and choose and use those for 40+ levels and then make it through the game that way, and that will just generally speed it up, because farming for Zeus gear can take like 10 to 20 hours to do, and that is a long time to attempt to farm for a gear set. That's going to take you many hours that you could have been using spending on questing, and that's kind of the whole point of this section, is that every second you're spending on farming gear is a second that you're not questing, which is going to slow things down to a decent extent, honestly. So you can see here, you can actually buy the Dragonspire World gear in the Bazaar right here, and it is actually really good. This level 50 hat will be more than enough to probably get you at least a decent way through Arc 2, and beyond that there is the Bygone gear at level 60 that you'll be able to buy as well, which is potentially even better. Now, it's not as good as the Atavistic, and I would say that the Bygone's also not as good as Waterworks and whatnot, but it's good enough that you really wouldn't have to farm for a gear set if you didn't really want to, and you could use it to get through Arc 2. Like this Bygone gear, it's not insanely good, but you can see it's decent enough stats, and potentially buying this instead of farming for a gear set will be enough to make it a little bit further. And obviously Bygone's currently not on console, but for all you PC players, this is good, and for console players, once the Bygone gear is out, this is good. My point is, pick and choose what gear sets you want to use. You don't need literally all of them. All right, next up, really quickly, I just want to mention getting a pet as early as possible is going to be super useful for speeding up questing. If you can manage to get a pet that has even 1 or 2 damage talents and a resist talent, it's going to be so useful in terms of your stats, and it's going to keep you much better off than if you didn't have any talents whatsoever. Now, if you want a full in-depth guide on how to actually get a pet, a good pet, and actually how to build a pet, watch the pet guide that I made a few weeks ago. It's in my console edition playlist if you want to go see that. But I would be remiss to not mention the fact that the earlier you get a good pet, the earlier you get a pet with a bunch of damage talents and whatnot, the faster questing is going to go for the rest of the game. If you can get a good pet in Arc 1, Arc 2, Arc 3, and Arc 4 is going to be so much better. And if you already have a max level wizard, if you can train up a pet before you start a new wizard on that max level wizard, your second wizard is going to quest so much faster. So keep that in mind. I would be remiss not to mention the fact that pets are one of the best ways to speed up questing in this game. And yeah, so if you want further in-depth knowledge about pets, go watch that video. It's only about like 10 minutes long. It's not that long of a video, but either way, Let's continue on. All right, so now you know about decks and you know about gear sets. Let's simply talk about navigation, because I think that this is actually one of the most underrated aspects to speeding up questing in Wizard 101. This right here, if you get good at navigating the map, is going to save you hours of time just naturally as you go. Now, what I mean by navigation, there's a few things that are very important to know. First off, if you see a teleporter, use a teleporter. If you look at the map, you can see where all of them are on the map, and it will save a ton of time. Now, for example, like if I had to go fight General Achilles right here, instead of walking all the way there, I use the teleporter, I'm at General Achilles now. This is going to be especially important once you get to the worlds that have very long streets like Dragonspire or Celestia, where it's going to take like 3-4 minutes to get from one side of the map to the other. If you use a teleporter, it's going to save you a massive amount of time. Now, on top of this, using marks is going to be very important as well. If you have a quest and you know that you're going to come back to that NPC, if you leave a mark and then go to the mark instead of walking all the way back, it's going to save you a ton of time. These things are going to add up. It doesn't seem like a lot, but when you actually come down to it, it's going to take a ton of time off of your questing. On top of that, there's also the social tab up here where you can teleport to any friendly wizard in the world. It's not going to be like the most useful thing in the world, but it will save you a bit of time if you need to backtrack to an entirely different street in a world, and it's going to save you time just generally if you can find someone at a specific place. In some worlds, there are these wizards at the beginning which have very specific areas that they TP you to. So like in Wizard City, there's one at the Bazaar, there's one at Pet Pavilion, there's one in Nightside, there's one right here to get to Aquila. They can be used to speed up getting to somewhere quite often, and it is very useful to use. Now, another tip, and one that I think is a little underrated for actually questing, is to, first off, don't get pulled, because getting pulled will probably slow you down a massive extent, because in a dungeon, you can't really get out of getting pulled. You kind of have to beat them in battle instead of fleeing and coming back or whatever. But just stick as close to the sidewalks as you can. Like if you stick like this, you're never going to get dragged like this. I've found a lot of people talk about the fact that getting dragged is an issue in Marleybone, but if you just stick to as far right as you can go on the rooftops, you will never ever get dragged in Marleybone, and I haven't been dragged in Marleybone in a very long time. Now, what if for some reason you do get dragged? What if you just kind of like make a mistake, you know, you accidentally walk a little bit too close and you get dragged? Well, instead of finishing a fight, there's actually something you can do that will potentially skip this fight. If you are in a dungeon, you can escape, quit. Once it loads, you press play again, and now hold the S key. You do that, you're no longer in battle. Obviously, this doesn't work in a dungeon, because if you do that, you will leave the dungeon and have no way to get back inside. But for street fights, this will potentially be very useful. Now, sometimes you will be in a situation where there's a ton of enemies walking around really fast, and you're not able to use this. In that case, you will be forced to flee if you don't want to fight the enemy. But for enemies like this, where you can see they're walking incredibly slowly and like there's not a ton of them in this area, if I get dragged, escape, quit, press play, and then press the S key, you will be able to get out of it. Now, I will say on console, this is actually significantly more difficult. Also on PC, this might happen where your game just doesn't work, where it doesn't connect to the servers, because King's Isle servers kind of suck. But my point is that while it might be more difficult, it isn't impossible. And yeah, this can happen, and you can be stuck connecting to server infinitely and have to relaunch your game. This is just something that is inevitable and will unfortunately happen because King's Isle servers do kind of suck. All right, we have the first full cam moment because I'm too lazy to relaunch my game. But that's basically all the tips for you today. If you follow all of these and kind of keep with questing and keep it as fast as possible, it's going to just shave valuable minutes off over time, and eventually it all adds up to potentially saving you hours and hours of time questing through this game. Especially the first few tips that I gave are going to save you hours of time, especially in Arc 1 and Arc 2. Now, if you have any other tips, leave them in the comments below, and for all of you that are looking for more tips, go to the comments below and see what people have left. Obviously, this is just a general guide. There are many other things that people might actually say that will speed up questing in this game, but I think that generally these are the best tips I can give. So if you enjoyed, if you found this useful, make sure to drop a like, hit the sub button. Otherwise, I will see you guys in the next video. Have a fantastic day, and thank you all for watching.